What's up, people? Stevie Flowers here. Super excited to be making this video. I'm going to be breaking down the production of my latest single, Same Old Things. I hope you heard it. If you haven't heard it yet, we're going to go through it and you kind of hear under the hood and then check it out later. But let's get into it. I would say first things first is this song actually used to be, it's at 118 beats per minute, but it used to be at around like 90, 95, I think. Then my friend Dom, shout out to Dom if you're seeing this, I'm going to make him see it. I'm going to send him the link. But I showed him the version I'm about to play and he was like, oh, dude, this is begging to be sped up. Let's show you what that sounded like. So the timing's a little bit off on these guitars for whatever reason, but I hope you get the idea. It was like the keyboard, the bass, the drums. The bass was probably a simpler version of this bass line. And then there's little guitar plucks. I was really just focused on the groove section when I first produced it, probably back in 2023 or something, 2023, 2024. I was just trying to work on my drums and my bass and try and get a locked in groove section. And a little tidbit about these keyboards, they're actually from this Yamaha keyboard that's sitting next to me. So it's just like a dinky little Yamaha thing. There's like one patch in it that I like. It has this preset in it called like Funky EP. And so I would always go to that one. It was like the best tone. I just loved it. So what I did is I actually took my iPhone and I put it up against this speaker right here. And I probably just played like middle C or something. Just played one note and I recorded it. And then I actually brought it into the sampler of Logic and made it into a patch. Didn't really do anything in here, but I added a bunch of different effects. And I'll show you what it sounded like originally, just the sample itself. So I added RC20. I don't know if this is a preset. I probably just made this myself, but I ended up adding everything. And so that makes it a little wavier, add some noise, some distortion, that kind of thing. And then I added Little Altar Boy. If you're not familiar with that, it's like a pitching plugin. So you can pitch it up and down, and then formant is kind of like tone is how I think about it, where it's like, where does your voice sit? Because you could have like someone with a low voice singing a high note, and that would be like a low formant, if that makes sense. So it's like, where is the note being formed? Is it from like a low place or a high place? I added a little bit of formant, and it gives it this kind of bite. Sounds like this. And so it added a little bit of an edge to it. Cymatics Origin, if you know them. Just another cool lo-fi plugin. I use this a lot nowadays. And then just a bunch of mixing stuff like compressor, EQ, doing some crazy stuff. I don't know what I was thinking there. Distortion, some stereo spread. So kind of just like regular mixing stuff, kind of make it sit in the mix a little different. But everything else before that was like tonal. So that being said, let's just kind of go through the structure and what every little part has and doesn't have. Yamaha keyboard is all the way through, but in the intro I had this little guitar part, and we'll do like the keyboard and just the guitars. So just a little lick on top of that, just to kind of get the motion going, and it's not just regular chords. So something that I added a lot later were these block chords. I use them a couple different times, and they're literally just me strumming each chord just to kind of add some filler and kind of draw out each bar. And that brings me to the drums. The drums are, if you're familiar with Splice, it's from Oliver, probably one of his Power Tools packs. It's like a live drum loop. I chopped it up. This was the very first element that I added. So it's just, whoop, it was a kick, hat, snare, hat. And so I just did like a real disco kind of thing. And that's pretty much the beat for the whole song. And then I add some fills on the snare. So it's just like holding down a very straight beat and then add in the bass. And that brings us to what I call the chorus. the chorus is like the instrumental part that you hear a couple times through with this nice little keyboard melody on top. And so that's like just the Yamaha keyboard, this little organ part that plays almost throughout the whole song. It's kind of just to build tension. I'll show you what that sounds like. And so that's literally just buried in there just to kind of push along, push with the chords and add some tension that you might not even hear, but hopefully you feel. The star of the show is really this 3-stack right here. So it's 2 keyboards and a guitar, and it sounds like this. I love that little lick. That was definitely my favorite part of the song. I had to put it in here a couple times. And when I was preparing for this video, I listened back and I didn't realize that the guitar was playing a different melody, slightly different than the keyboards. I thought they were all playing the same notes. And then the only other element that we haven't heard yet, I guess I showed you this earlier, but like these lead guitars. Anything that can play notes and hold notes, but using it in a rhythmic way, I think really helps tie together like a groove section and the melody section. Before we had it finally mixed and mastered, I had that part like a lot louder, and it wasn't working like over the 2-3 minutes of the song, but I love that part, so I turned it up. And then obviously I have like a cymbal on the one. Another good thing is to have like an impact or a cymbal, or maybe a reverse cymbal leading into the beat on the one, but something to kind of just tell you like we are now in a new section. And then we go into the verse, and that's when the vocals come in. Everything else pretty much stays the same, and we hear the vocals for the first time. I got one down the middle, one on the left, and one on the right. We'll just hear what the vocals sound like on their own.
I do the same all things, no one to blame. Can't put the blame on me, I can't complain. I've been here for weeks, we do the same things, we do the same old thing.
We'll get into the vocal production a little bit more and what kind of plugins I was doing and what I was thinking. And then the next section is like the ride out, which in hindsight is probably more like the chorus or like a refrain. The verse is kind of wordy and dense when it comes to like the lyrical content and the vocal melody, whatever it's doing. So I wanted to kind of let it breathe, and that's why I think I called it the ride out, where it's like let's just ride off into the sunset kind of thing. Like, so I cut out the rhythm guitars, the block chords come back in, and those are just to kind of like, again, ride out, just play the song as it is. The bass line gets simpler. How about I'll show you what the bass and drums are doing before that, and then how it leads into it. And even just from like listening to the rhythm section, the groove section, you can hear how that becomes a different section. It's incredible how like drums and bass can drive the whole song. And I think a lot of modern music does that, for better or worse. And then for this section, to go back to the vocals, it's pretty much the same kind of thing, but I just gave it some space.
We do the same old things, can't take that from me. The same old things, can't take that from me.
Just from listening to that 3-piece of like the drums, the bass, and the vocals, I'm like, I should have done a section of the song that just had that. That arrangement is something that I'm trying to work on too. It's like an invitation to experiment, you know? And then we go back to the chorus. This section is pretty much entirely the same. So I'm going to play just like the lead melody and the drums and the bass, because I feel like that's kind of what's interplaying there. And then after this chorus, we go into one of my favorite parts, which is like this keyboard solo. And so I had these early on, and I didn't really know where to use them, but I ended up adding them here after the second chorus, and it fit really well. And that brings me to verse 2, which is, I'm pretty sure, just like verse 1, production-wise. Yeah, nothing else has changed. I would say that one thing that makes this section really good is the background vocals. Let me play just the vocals with the background vocal now that it's in there.
We do the same old things, oh, can't take that from me, oh. We do the same old things, oh, can't take that from me.
So, calling back to the beginning of the video when I was telling you about how the song was a lot slower, I was trying to do like this funkier R&B kind of thing. I actually had a bunch of little vocal parts in there that kind of just sat around. I didn't really know what to do with. They ended up just kind of being like a little transition effect in this song, which is super cool. I'm going to play everything together, and then I'm going to solo the vocals. When I had the slower version and it was just the guitars and the bass and whatnot, that little screech at the end was literally like the only thing in there. It was like a transition effect. And so this is that part just by itself. But I just thought it was so different than the rest of the song. And so it kind of served as this like, what the hell moment. Yeah, so we go back to the chorus here, you know, that keyboard melody. And then we go into this bridge. I called it the bridge, but it's kind of more of like a breakdown. But we have like these keyboards that are kind of like spun down, like as if the record was stopping. And then it leads into what basically becomes like a new bass line. So let me play just that section with no vocals. And then I introduced this thing called the Buzzy Synth. That was the preset name. And that's pretty much just like it kind of gives me like a Soulja Boy, early 2000s kind of vibe. And I really liked how it sounded tonally on this, but it don't feel like it fit the vibe. But I did want to use it, so I ended up putting it at the end. Sounds like this. Yeah. And so that brings us to the outro. I bring back that other side of the room vocal. For some reason, like when I got to the end, I just felt like I wanted the rhythm to keep going. So all I did was added a hi-hat to like tap it out a little bit. And this is what the outro sounds like. And that's it. And then let me take you back and we'll talk about the vocals a little bit more. I'm still kind of figuring out my voice. And so when it comes to different songs and stuff, I'm just really just trying things out. I have one vocal take down the middle. And I'm pretty sure this is the compressed vocal preset, or it's the slammed vocal preset. So don't quote me on that. But yeah, so the compressed and the slammed vocal presets are two that I can just throw on there and get to work. Let me play the left and the right vocal by themselves.
I do the same old things, no one to blame. Can't put the blame on me, I can't complain. I've been here for weeks, we do the same things, we do the same old things.
And as you can hear, it's like kind of spotty. Like there's some parts where you can't even really, I just stopped singing on certain times, and I feel like I kept it because it just felt more organic. But yeah, you can even hear me like kind of like that, like kind of reach for the notes and then bring them back down. On the bus for the vocals, I had this channel EQ. I was cutting the lows, have a little low shelf. to bring up those kind of lower, dopey kind of frequencies to fill out the vocal. And this is happening on all three, the center, the left, and the right. And then I did this little cut about 500, because I feel like 500, anywhere from like 400 to 600 for me, for my vocal, usually needs to kind of get tamed, and then it just sounds clearer. I didn't do very much taming here, as you can see, but I'm not surprised that I reached for 500. And then the shelf to kind of blend it into the mix, because I don't think there's too many high frequency elements going on here that the vocal needs to fight with. And so I brought it down so that it would kind of blend into the mix, and it wasn't so over the top, like it wasn't so striking compared to the instrumental and what was going on there. So I brought down the highs from like 1K down, and then a little bit of 2320. Something I learned really recently was how the human ear doesn't perceive sound evenly. Definitely do your own research on this, because like I don't fully understand this, but there's like a range that human voices usually stand in, and your ears are more sensitive to that, to hear other human voices. In my perception, definitely look up, there's certain graphs out there, so look it up, but from like 1,000 to like 5,000 is where I find that you usually need to kind of like tame it a little bit to bring it into the mix. And that's just me, that's just my songs, my production. Every song's different, every voice is different, but that's something that I've noticed has really helped, is like, let's kind of calm down that part a bit. I got a de-esser going. If you don't know what a de-esser does, neither do I. No, I'm just kidding. So the de-esser does exactly what it says. It's de-essing. So every time you say an S or a S kind of sound, it's pushing it down, and so that part doesn't poke up. So I threw that on there. I don't really know how to work the de-esser very well. I feel like I'm always kind of guessing, but I don't want to overdo it. And then Pultec EQ. If you don't know what that is, do your research on the Pultec EQs. They're kind of historic when it comes to music production. I think they came out like really early, like the 50s or something. Again, don't quote me, I'm just saying stuff. But that being said, I'm doing a boost and an attenuation, or a cut, basically in the same amount, but the attenuation is at 10K. So looking at the EQ, that's like way up here. And then I'm doing a boost at 4K, which is more of that speaking range that I was talking about. You might say, hey Stevie, why didn't you just boost the 4K here and cut the 10K here? Well, the Pultec has its own kind of sound to it. This plugin's modeled after the analog gear, and so when you do the moves in here, it just has a different sound. And let's be honest, I was just winging it. I was just tinkering, trying to find things that sounded good. Okay, and then moving over here, we have 2 reverb sends going to a concert hall reverb. I cut a lot of the highs on this, trying to match the EQ of the dry signal, probably is what I was doing here. And then what do I have here? A delay, actually. So it's a stereo delay, 1/8 note delay, and a 1/4 note delay. That's every vocal going through that. And that's pretty much it. I'm glad we got to go through it together. I just kind of learned a little bit just by making this video, so that's pretty cool. But like I said, when they have those disco drums, you just kind of keep the party going. So the arrangement's pretty simple. Just kind of wanted to solo a couple parts and let you hear it. I appreciate you guys watching. Like I said, first of many YouTube videos, so let me know down in the comments any songs that I've put out this far that you want to hear me do a production breakdown on. That'd be pretty cool. Go check out this full song, Same Old Things, by me, Stevie Flowers. My album, Late Bloomers, coming out July 24th. I'm going to have a pre-save link down below. Check that out. A whole bunch of new songs, a whole bunch of new videos. It'll be a great time. I appreciate you watching this far. We got more videos to come, and I hope to see you there. Peace.